Back on the Pete the Planner Show, I'm Pete the Planner, pointing at the camera. You can watch it at PeteThePlanner.tv. In studios, Nicole, hi.
Hi.
I got you out from behind the magic curtain this week.
Feels magical.
How great of a job is intern Aaliyah doing?
She's doing amazing.
She's amazing. You can see Aaliyah's work at PeteThePlanner.tv. She produced and directed and shot and edited the first episode of Pete's Eats. You can find that at PeteThePlanner.tv. And we recorded an episode this morning. A little brunch for the crew.
It was delicious.
I think so. All right, Nicole, this is a heady topic here. The question in front of us is, what is the one thing people need to do in their financial lives in 2018 as a culture in America? What is missing? Why are all the bad statistics continuously the same? Why do we always have people like average balance in America is $10,000 and that the average person can't come up with $400 in an emergency? Like, why do all of these things happen other than wages? Because we're not going to address wages today because I don't want this to turn into, well, there's a giant wage gap, and the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. I'm not disputing that.
No.
I think there's just another issue that I have discovered in the last 20 years of doing this.
Yeah.
And how financial educators like myself have changed our approach over the last 20 years, I believe, is proof that this issue exists.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I may, give you a little history lesson here.
Oh.
The late 90s, how old were you?
I was born in 94, so
Okay.
probably 4 or 5.
Okay, late 90s, here was what was going on. You've heard of the dot-com bubble?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so a lot of dot-coms were coming out in the late 90s where the internet companies were just booming, hundreds of millions of dollars, and then there's the bubble, they all popped, burst, or whatever, and people lost a bunch of money.
Yeah.
But really what was happening in America from a retirement standpoint and an education standpoint at that time is that we began to realize that the first part of the baby boomers didn't necessarily have enough money saved for retirement. It was the first inkling that there was a retirement crisis.
Yeah.
And the reason for that crisis is because since the mid-1970s, pensions had been on the decline. Mm-hmm. And so what happened was the retirement and financial industry that we're in, and I was even in 98, they decided to start doing workplace education, like in break rooms all across the country. You know, the 401k guy would come in, and the following conversation would take place. I'm the financial guy.
Okay.
You're the worker, and you're going to say, I can't afford to, okay, after I say the first line.
Thank you for priming me.
You need to save more for retirement.
I can't afford to.
You can't afford not to. And then that's what happened in the late 90s. And so
that's so debilitating.
Well, it's a lot of things. It's sort of
so many things.
But here's what it began to do. It began to tell that generation of workers and workers behind that it was no longer their employer's responsibility to fund their retirement.
Yeah.
So that was an important step, although the effectiveness of telling someone you can't afford not to is sort of dumb. Okay? So then the turn of the millennium happened, and I thought that Y2K was going to be real, and I had water at our house.
That's okay.
I really thought Y2K was going to be a disaster. No one cares. And this ushered in the era of credit card debt.
Yeah.
Like consumers getting tens of thousands of dollars deep in credit card debt became very real in the early 2000s. And home ownership became really important because lenders and banks started saying, we can let these people get deep in debt and in so doing, make a lot of money off of them.
Yeah.
Use their own greed and consumer interests and market and leaning into that to cause them problems, but to make things good for us.
Right, yeah.
All the while holding our hands up and saying, hey, you're making the decisions. So that happened. So then what ended up... Yeah, it did. And so what ended up happening was financial education during that time really became about getting people out of credit card debt. That was sort of early 2000s. Well, that led up to 2007, 2008, when the entire economy collapsed because people were so leveraged.
Right, yeah.
Specifically with home ownership. So then this was actually a really good thing. I'm getting to my point. Don't you worry. This was a really good thing for financial education because everyone was in shambles.
Yeah.
So people paid attention because they were terrified. You could build someone's life back from scratch in about 2009. March of 2009 were like the heyday of my career.
Yeah.
Because people would listen. Like people were like, yes, I'm desperate. I need help. And the personal savings rate in our country went up because people were so terrified they'd stop spending money and started saving money, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
So then, around 2012 or so, once people sort of rebuilt their lives over this 3-year period by using the fundamentals, then these subprime lending practices came back and banks started saying, okay, everyone's secure now, let's do it again. So then what we had to do is people's behaviors started to suffer again. And so then starting around 2012, our job as financial educators became to modify the bad behaviors of those people we served. And money was a lot less about math than it was about behavior from 2012 up until current, modern times.
Yeah.
Which, not that 2012 is not modern times, but today.
But to today.
Which is where we're at. But here's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I mean, and look, I try not to do this very often on the show. I've been doing this as long as anyone in the world when it comes to financial education.
Yeah.
So we are always sort of on the cutting edge because we've been there the whole time. Here's what's next. I know what's next, but I don't know exactly how we're going to do it. I'm just sharing it with you, though.
I know. Oh, I know.
Here's the problem. People don't care.
No.
People don't care that the math doesn't work.
No, because they got the stuff.
They have stuff, but then they do this thing of saying, you know what, it's all going to work out.
Yeah.
No, it won't.
It won't. Eventually, one day, it will not work out.
No, I mean, and the weird thing is, it's not working out. We're more tolerant, as we've been talking the last couple months on the show. We've become more tolerant of bad situations, which means we're numb to them.
What a horrible thing.
Yeah.
So I think that's why our country is the way it is in general right now.
In a lot of instances, I would agree. Now, here's the issue. Not only do you have to acknowledge that something's wrong,
yeah,
you have to care enough to want to change it.
Yeah.
And then becomes the step of behavior modification, of behavior change, you taking action. But I think we're currently stuck as a culture of people simply not caring that they're headed for a disaster. And it's all under the guise and an assumption that something's going to come along and fix this for them. And
Yeah.
I'm not talking the economy or the
No.
market
No.
or the government. I'm talking about an individual making the personal finance decisions in front of them and seeing that mathematically they're putting away, on average, I think less than 4% of their income towards the future,
Yeah.
which, Nicole, I was going to say it's virtually impossible to succeed. It's not even virtually impossible. It is impossible to succeed financially if you're putting 4% of your income away. Mm-hmm. Impossible. And so if you hear that, if you're listening on the radio right now or you're watching on PeteThePlanner.tv and you hear me say this, and this is your reality, like you look at well, I'm putting away 4%. Okay, I'm talking to you then. You have to care. And that's why what's tough about this, Nicole, is it's really easy to get distracted by the wage gap, the wage issue.
Yeah.
And I am not insensitive to that. I understand that if someone's making below living wage in our country, their
Right.
chances of financial success aren't great. I'm actually going to do this right now. I'm going to look up the living wage calculator, which will tell us in Marion County. We'll go with Marion County, Indiana. Okay,
Yeah.
Marion County, which is the Indianapolis proper area, if you will. If you're listening outside of our area, I want to tell you what living wage is in Marion County, Indiana. We're looking it up right now. You can find this at livingwage.mit.edu. MIT is in Massachusetts Institute of Technology. That's livingwage.mit.edu. If you are one adult living alone, living wage in Marion County, Indiana means you'd have to make $11 an hour to survive. Minimum wage is $7.25.
Yes.
Poverty wage is $5. I don't even know how that works. One adult, one child, single parent raising a kid, doing the Lord's work.
Yes.
Living wage, $22.85. That means if you're a single adult making less, single a parent, I should say,
Right.
making less than roughly $40,000 a year, you make below living wage, caring is not the issue for you.
No.
Your wages are the issue.
Yeah.
Caring only becomes an issue if you're making above living wage and you're not funding the things you should fund.
Yeah.
2 adults, no children. Let's find this one. 2 adults, no children. This one's crazy. 2 adults, okay. $8.94 is living wage. Okay, so it reverses backwards. Okay, $8.94. So anyway, check this out. Go to livingwage.mit.edu. The big issue right now in our country in terms of financial lives, once you make above living wage, is caring about what the math says, because the math isn't good. Coming up after the break, biggest waste of money of the week and more. I'm Pete the Planner, and this is the Pete the Planner Show.